Good evening, everyone. A special acknowledgement to Mrs. Ivanka Christo on her final speech tonight as executive head of the school. And I want to extend a special greeting to the matric class of 2023. A huge congratulations to you. You've made it, okay? I promise you, I know it starts next week Thursday, but you've made it, okay? So well done, and good luck for the next few weeks. I know it's going to be interesting, but you'll make it, okay? So interestingly, 2023 has been a whirlwind of trials and tribulations. Many of us have lost loved ones. We've struggled with relationships, both at school, some of us professionally, and we've had to overcome some massive setbacks. And this is all post-COVID, right? I mean, we remember the COVID days, we thought doom and gloom and destruction. But guess what? It can only get better, right? So if you think about it, you've been students for 13 years now? And you're reaching the final little bit, okay, of formal schooling before you continue your lives. I'm sure some of you will be going to tertiary institutions, others will be getting some work experience, and then others, maybe you're taking a gap year. But one interesting thing that's probably stood you in good stead, I just want to find out from your side, which voice has been your constant companion? I don't know if anyone wants to take a stab at that. Okay, let me give you a little bit of a hint. Which voice has said, yes, you can? Which voice has said, try a little bit harder? Which voice has said, you're not going to get this right? Or maybe there was a voice that said, oh, dude, what were you thinking? Any stabs? Which voice is it? No one brave enough to say something? I'd like the ones who are going to be examined next week to say something. Anyone? Which voice has been literally giving you some interesting encouragement, sometimes, interesting words? Which voice? There you go. Spot on. Who's that? Nah, I was hoping it was one of them. You see now, that's one of those who sets up the very tough exams. So. But at least she's on the ball. So you've had a voice in your head ever since you were born, right? And guess what? This voice has been constant. That's the voice that basically tells you everything, right? That's your companion. So if you've got a voice that's speaking to you constantly, every single day, psychologists call it self-talk, okay? My question is, with that voice, what are you saying to yourself? So when you're nervous, what does your inner voice say? Does it tell you to calm down? When you've achieved something great, that should be the first voice to congratulate you. It should be going like, you go, girl, you've done it. The interesting thing is we're not even aware that that voice is there because it's just constant. In my case, when I go a little bit crazy and I'm frustrated, I start speaking to myself out loud. That's my inner voice coming out. And I know sometimes I look a little bit crazy, but guess what? It works, okay? So as I said, psychologists believe that self-talk can significantly influence our emotions, our attitudes, decisions, and actions. How we speak to ourselves has a bearing on our personal and professional lives. I remember receiving a scholarship to come to this particular school. I started here in grade 7, and I can assure you, as a young girl coming from Soweto, there weren't many of us who looked like me. This was in the 80s. I often say to my kids, before Mandela was released. Not easy. I was coming into the boarding house. So I wasn't going to have mom's food. I was going to sleep in a different bed. I was very anxious. And the one thing my mom did, she sat me down and she told me something I'll never forget. She quoted the former First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, and she said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." You know, basically, that statement for me has, stayed with me. She told me that it all starts in the mind. If I tell myself I'm inferior, I will feel inferior, and I will look inferior. Immediately, my body language will say it. So, there's an interesting saying from a particular politician. He said this to a few men. He said, "Stomachs in, chests out." Right? He must be a kind of person, not a how. So, as I said, this quote has really stuck with me over the years, and I believe it stood me in good stead when navigating new territory. When I look at first job, even varsity, it can be daunting. But every single time I've had to listen to my inner voice, and you actually have to train it as well. Because what am I saying to myself? So what are you going to say to yourselves? So professionally, I run an agency, and my company, we pitch for business. Every single time, you have to go and convince someone. It's like being a salesman, often. And when you pitch, you're pitching against some of the best advertising agencies and communication agencies in the country. And sometimes the world, because some of them are multinationals, they've got offices all over the world, and they come with interesting data and things like that. But guess what? We've won quite a few. We've lost many. But every single time we've won, I've sat with a client and I've said, "What made you choose us?" And often they say, "You know what? You all offer wonderful services. You've got great case studies. But it's the confidence. When you come across as confident, people believe in you." So what I then do with my team, I realized, okay, we need to build confidence. And you guys actually do it. When you have inter-house galas, and you're going to go in your houses and you go into war cry mode, war cries, that's a rallying cry for victory. What's your war cry? I remember my son went on camp 28 days last year. Nearly broke my heart. Somewhere in the middle of his own birthday, it was raining out there and he was alone. And I could only write him one letter. I could only speak to him once in that whole time. When he left, I gave him a bracelet, and it had a scripture quote on it. I sort of converted it slightly, and it said, "I am strong in the Lord and in the power of his might." Right now, every time he writes an exam, every time he has a challenge, he was drafted from the under-16 soccer team to go and play with the firsts. He marches and he says, "I am strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. I am strong in the Lord and in the power." It's a chant. I've had to teach him to say that. I hope you have your own chant. In fact, I pray you all have your own chant. It gives you direction. So rally up your troops internally, have your inner voice, and let it bring you to victory. But you know what? Sometimes we're not victorious. After you've used the positive talk, you've shouted that war cry, there's disappointment. So what do? I'm hoping we wallow, and sometimes we shift the blame, but guess what? We've got to dust ourselves off, face the reality. Maybe we weren't adequately prepared, but guess what? We can't badger ourselves down. The inner voice can't say, "I'm not good enough." Okay? It's times like these that you have to practice being gentle with yourselves. Professor and author Brené Brown says, "Talk to yourself as you would someone you love." So I'm sure you all remember when you were little and you tripped and fell, and mommy came and dusted it off and kissed it better and spoke to you gently. That's how we need to be. We need to be gentle with ourselves. Speak to yourselves in that manner. And as you grow older, it gets tricky because guess what? The dynamics of support structure change. Parents, You might be far away, you might be studying overseas, you get new friends, but the one thing that's going to be consistent is your own inner voice. That's what's going to guide you through the tough times, through the losses. Remember to speak to yourself gently and continue to encourage yourselves. So, as you're about to step into this lovely new milestone in your life, the next phase, I encourage you to reflect on the past 13 years or so and recall moments where you've talked to yourself positively. I'm sure you have. We just don't remember. We do it naturally, instinctively. And interestingly enough, we probably remember the times someone has said something bad and that has stuck with us, and that becomes your chant. I pray that doesn't become your chant. I pray that you become gentle on yourself and you encourage yourself with more positive words. So, we get caught up in wanting to fit in, wanting to be almost inconspicuous, part of the crowd. I want to encourage you to use self-talk to motivate yourselves, improve your self-esteem. Most importantly, at this phase, manage stress. Easier said than done, trust me. But like anything in life, it gets easier the more and more you do it and the more cognizant you are of it. And I just want to leave you with one last quote from Lisa M. Hayes. She's a relationship coach and writer. And she says, be careful how you talk to yourself, because guess what? You are listening. I thank you.